Tony Kinnett.
Tony Kinnett.
Tony Kinnett.
Tony Kinnett.
Tony Kinnett. Tony Kinnett.
Tony Kinnett.
Host of the Tony Kinnett Cast.
Let's get down to business.
You're listening to the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
WCYTV.
Here on the Daily Signal.
Well, hey, it's good to be with you. It is just over 2 weeks until the November 5th elections, and there really is no better way to describe the Harris-Walz campaign than a full nuclear-scale Chernobyl meltdown. It is a nightmare that just won't end. There's a scene from, as many journalists do, I cite only the most professional of media for very important moments. There's a scene from an extremely Goofy movie in which Goofy's son Max is competing in the college X Games. And the announcer says, "Folks, it looks like a bad dream and it's not gonna get any better." And everything below this ESPN blimp is on fire. That is a great picture of the Kamala Harris-Tim Walz campaign. And it's for a couple of really key reasons. Number one, and first and foremost, in front of the American public, she's just not popular. You've heard she's just not that into you. Kamala is just not that popular. The Biden-Harris administration is not popular, and voters have glued her to it. Some were wondering if Donald Trump, in this very short election cycle when Kamala Harris completed her coup and shoved old Sleepy Joe out of the way, a lot of people wondered, me included, if Trump was going to be able to glue her to the Biden-Harris administration in time for this to still be a referendum on the last 4 years. And he was helped. Trump was helped by Biden, Trump was helped by Kamala Harris herself, and a lot of really stupid things going on in the world. None of the least include the economy. So we really should start off with the economic situation in the United States. There are people who have some severe concerns. And these concerns about the economy, because they can't afford groceries, they can't afford gas, credit card debt is on the rise. More Americans are concerned than ever have been before in history that they will no longer be able to keep up the payments on their credit card bills, meaning that they're putting more and more of their every 2-week expenses on their credit cards. It's a serious problem. And so this CEO for some Democratic organization wrote this tweet yesterday that she said, "I'm learning while I knock on doors that when people tell me they're voting for Trump because of the economy, they're really telling me they're voting for Trump because of white supremacy. If you believe this, you're an idiot." And luckily here in Indiana, we have idiots on display. So Michael J. Hicks, who is is a professor of econ. He's actually the director of Ball State University's Center for Business and Economic Research. He decided that he would put stupid on full display in front of the entire country today and said, this type of tweet is something that used to infuriate me. Well, yeah, if you instantly assume anyone who's voting for Trump because the economy's terrible is a white supremacist, that should infuriate you. But he doesn't just say that. Then Mike goes on, he says, "It seems so simplistic, judgmental, and unforgiving. But having experienced it so often, I see it's the truth." Aha. And then someone pushes, on him and says, as an economy professor, an economics professor, you should really know that the economy's not really so hot as you're being told repeatedly in the media right now. And he says, and I quote, "This is the best economy in the past 50 years. If your personal economic experience isn't good, you can find the reason simply by walking past a mirror." That's how you do it, ladies and gentlemen. See, you're stupid if you think that grocery prices are high. It's actually your fault if you can't afford gas. Oh, gee, man, what a brilliant strategy for winning voters. And I called him out on this and pointed out that any infantryman that talks like this should have had a sock party in basic training, meaning that someone should have held him down and should have been a recipient of repeated bars of soap in socks about the chest and stomach. To which he then suggested that, he wanted to fight me because he's obviously a very not unhinged individual. So aside from some lovely physical threats from the chair of Ball State's business and economics department, the left is melting down in other ways. For example, foreign policy. CNN confirmed that documents that were leaked to a pro-Iran regime Telegram channel are indeed authentic. What are these documents, you may ask? Oh, they are Israel's reported plans to retaliate against the ballistic missile attacks fired twice now by Iran. Now, you remember how the Biden administration was throwing a hissy fit, like a full-scale hissy fit in front of the country about a week ago because Israel was refusing to share any information about its pager attack on Hezbollah or any of the other various strikes in the region? This is why. Because the Obama administration and now the Biden-Harris administration has spent their entire terms in office staffing the State Department and other federal security agencies with pro-Hamas Shia radicals. And then they turn around, oh, gee, that something leaked out. What a surprise. Oh, gee, amazing. Mm-hmm. And really, it boils down to just bad optics. Kamala Harris has just got some real stinky optics. These come in many varieties and flavors. First of all, there was someone at a recent rally who shouted, Jesus is Lord, which is something Christians believe in. And Kamala Harris responded they were at the wrong rally. So, great. And when a guy was, a heckler, was shouting that Israel's committing a genocide, and she went ahead and responded to that by saying that, oh, that's real. That's something real that's happening. It's real. So just excellent optics stuff there. So shouting Jesus is Lord? No, absolutely not. But, shouting, very weird, unsubstantiated anti-Semitic crap, yeah, that's totally fine. Great work there, Kamala. Then she gets on a town hall, which I should clarify, a very fake town hall. And don't take my word for it. Here's the host of the town hall saying that it's not actually a town hall because one of the people asks, are we going to get to ask Kamala Harris any questions?
You're not, unfortunately. We have some predetermined questions, and hopefully I'll be able to ask some of the questions that might be in your head. I hope so.
Oh, so just an interview in front of people. Yeah, that's useful. Great. These are predetermined questions. Yeah, God forbid any of the voters ask Kamala any questions. Although I suppose we all would love to hear about what kind of a family she grew up in. She takes the stage with Liz Cheney, notable, very popular Republican Liz Cheney, who, by the way, lost her primary, got spanked like a bad child. And Liz Kamala's so bad at this. So first of all, Kamala tries to talk foreign policy, and she starts off by misquoting one of the most prominent, definitive quotes about U.S. politics in the 20th century. She tries to say, politics ends at the water's edge. But, well.
There was a time when there was a phrase that I'll paraphrase that basically politics ends at the sea line, at the boundaries of our country.
Yes. By the way, this is supposed to mean that political disputes are supposed to be like inside the United States. And the minute we start exercising foreign policy, that the United States should be bipartisan. Foreign policy should be bipartisan. There really shouldn't be any qualms about it. Well, that's really rich coming from Kamala Harris, whose administration has moles leaking things to Iran. I'm just saying, it's kind of funny you're lecturing the crowd about politics stopping at the water's edge when invasions only seem to happen during your administrations, and your staffers send out things to those who actively hunt and kill Americans. So then, goodness, just so many stupid things out of Kamala Harris' mouth. She's just resorted to saying very basic garbage. I don't know if this is a joke. You guys are going to have to help me with this one.
I'll tell you, and I know this is a controversial topic for many of us, I love Gen Z. Because we have Gen Zs in our lives. We have kids who are Gen Zs. It can be complicated, I know. I love Gen Z.
I'm going to say something controversial. I like puppies. We all have puppies. Yeah, you mean the whole buying black men by saying that you're going to institute federal regulations because black men are apparently too stupid to invest in crypto on their own, or you're going to just give millions of dollars to black businesses, which violates the Civil Rights Act, or, just like weed. Black men like weed, right? Oh, that didn't work. So now we're on to the Gen Z train. I can't wait for her to say Pokemon Go to the polls like Hillary Clinton. It's going to be grand. The real problem, especially in the swing states, that the Harris-Walz campaign is having, it's a man problem. Having a problem with men, because after years and years and years of telling straight men that they are horrible, terrible, evil, awful people, It seems they don't want to vote for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz anymore. And this is due to a lot of different reasons that we'll certainly dig into. Mark Cuban, though, prominent rich guy, says that the reason that Kamala Harris is not really doing well with men is because of the algorithm. The algorithm.
And you were recently on The View talking about how social media has created a gender gap in American politics. First of all, I just wanted to know, how did you get on that topic? How did you sort of realize that?
So they asked me about the gender gap, and I'm a geek, right? I use all technology. You know, you want to know the difference between Perplexity, ChatGPT, Gemini, I'll tell you. So I'm that geeky. And when they
Lost
asked
his
me,
train of thought.
I thought about it before, because it's obvious. You know what it's like, right? You're scrolling. And the more you look at one thing, if you watch one video, you're getting more of those videos. And for guys, it's even more so, because you start watching football.
Ah, yes. So it's the algorithm. Yep. Great. Excellent stuff. It certainly can't be because when Harris surrogates actually release ads, they release really stupid advertisements talking about man stuff just boils down to bear hugs and beer, because them's men right there. Good stuff. Now, there are Democrats that are starting to point to the concerns that, you know, if Kamala loses, which is very possible, this is according to Travis Helwig, he's a over for Crooked Media, so this would be the Obama bros. He says there need to be a discussion about how Democrats speak to young men. And the responses to this from the left show you exactly why the Harris-Walz campaign are losing men so drastically. We're going to talk about that up next. Don't go anywhere. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated and first on 93 WIBC.
Attention taxpayer. This is the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Man, oh man. There is something about this particular problem the Democrats have that's just extra hilarious because it's translating directly to the swing states. As we've said before, in the Sun Belt and in the Rust Belt, the primary voters that used to be, I should say, of the Democrats' concerns were up through the mid-aughts, the early teens. The Rust Belt, because of 90s labor Democrats, men who worked in the factories 20, 30, 40 years. And then after a lot of those jobs moved to Mexico, moved to China, a lot of those 20, 30, 40 year factory working men moved to the Sun Belt. So you have two swing state portions that are very full of working class men here in the United States. And the Democrats have been struggling all election to win them. And they have tossed aside the opportunity to put a decent candidate like Josh Shapiro, popular governor of Pennsylvania, on the Harris ticket, and instead went with Tim Walz, who waves his arm around and flamboyantly pirouettes on stage. So, as we were talking about right before the break, Travis Helwig pointed out that there are very few straight men under 40 in the Democratic consultant class. So, when ads try to reach young men, they come off very deeply inauthentic. And this is something that is pretty real. I mean, everyone understands this in Hollywood and in media today because you don't really see like straight dudes in commercials anymore, much less straight white dudes. And by the way, it's not a victim thing. That's pointing out very clearly that Hollywood is not targeting that class. Instead, Hollywood usually lectures that class as being the problem. And so those people aren't coming out to vote. Now, here's where things get funny. So Nate Hochman, who's an excellent writer, he pointed this out. He says, quote, the discussion about what to do and how to reach young men will never, ever happen. Because the replies to that tweet from Travis Helwig are a perfect summation, a perfect example of basically the inside of the Democratic Party and how they view men. So let me read a few of them. OMG, this is nonsense. Our entire society caters to men. White men are 30% of the population, but they run everything. From another, poor young straight men. The responsibility for their actions or inactions always lies elsewhere. This other one, a man suggesting coddling young straight white men. Young men don't want to be reached. If they don't care about democracy, reproductive health care, fascism, housing, what the bleep do they care about? And on and on and on and on. Guys, I hate to tell you, but the Democrats are going to continue along this progressive path they have built for themselves. The gender gap is continuing to widen. The problem for Democrats is the gender gap that continues to widen, the more liberal these ladies are getting, the less likely they are to get married, and the even less likely they are to have kids. So they're self-extincting themselves, and that doesn't even get into the abortion discussion. So the polls bear this out in brutal detail. The trend lines, again, what we look at in October, show Trump consistently going up, kind of starting to flatline around a ceiling of about 48.5%. Kamala Harris is a full point behind. The line has trended downward, has not started flatlining yet. So Trump's hit his ceiling. Harris is continuing to sink because the more Americans look into her, the worse it gets. So this is the big stuff. Trump is up in every single swing state by average. In Pennsylvania, he's up 0.8. In North Carolina, 0.5. Georgia, 1.8. Arizona, 1.6. Wisconsin, 0.2. Basically a strong toss-up. Michigan, 1.2. Nevada, 0.8. Nevada's back in play. Virginia is also in play. Several polls have Trump going back and forth with Harris in leads. This is a very serious problem for Democrats because for Democrats to pull a strong election, nationally, Harris needs to be doing about a 3-point lead on Trump. Right now, it's a toss-up. It goes back and forth between Harris or Trump +1. In the swing states, when Joe Biden beat Trump, he was up by 7 or 8 points in most of these states. Trump is up or dead tie in a lot of these. And that's before we get to the scandals. So as if the policy wasn't bad enough, if the cringe wasn't bad enough, then we get to the scandals and the Trump campaign pretty precisely pouncing on these particular points of interest. Did you like that alliteration? Yeah, I know you did. So the 60 Minutes interview, you will all remember 60 Minutes brought Kamala Harris on and she started rambling this nonsensical answer about Benjamin Netanyahu and the United States' relationship with Israel. And then 60 Minutes cut down her answer. They edited out her answer to make her look less stupid. And so everyone in the media sphere, by the way, including analysts at CNN, pointed out, that's kind of gross. And so now 60 Minutes is trying very desperately to do a little bit of emergency drywall repair here. And so they say, well, it was actually the same question, it was the same answer, but a different portion of the response. Sometimes it's okay to edit things. I was assured that was what's called a cheap fake, when you carefully or creatively edit something to get the point across very succinctly. How about that? And then we get to Kamala's McDonald's claim. Kamala Harris, for the very first time ever in history, in not her first biography, but her second biography, pointed out that she once worked in a McDonald's. Now, she never mentioned McDonald's before then, and we have looked and looked and looked. On official documents to the state of California, in which Kamala was supposed to report like the last jobs that she'd had for the last 2 decades, for like serious state positions for background checks, she never listed McDonald's, which is, at least a misdemeanor if you kind of perjure that document. So she's doubling down on this claim that she worked at McDonald's and she worked the fryer because she's trying to say, I'm just like you guys. I'm a normal person. I also worked in the fast food industry. And she's still doubling, tripling down on this. This is pretty wild. So if we take a look at a clip from today in which Kamala made the wild decision to try telling everyone that she still says she works at McDonald's.
Madam Vice President, do you work at a McDonald's?
She's like, yes, I did. Yes, oh, it so did. And then Tim Walz, in the exact same way today on The View, made fun of Trump for also going to a McDonald's and working. And it falls really flat because, well, Tim Walz is not exactly known for telling the truth.
She actually worked in a McDonald's. She didn't go and pander and disrespect McDonald's workers by standing there in your red tie and take a picture.
Ah, yes, disrespecting. That's disrespecting McDonald's workers. Ah, yes, thank you for your service. And by that, I mean, when he was on the debate stage and he said that he grew up in Nebraska, he's proud of that service. So, yes, thank you, Timmy. Really appreciate it. Then we actually have Trump working at McDonald's, which, by the way, brilliant campaign move. Brilliant. It was just good. Sorry. It was good. The photos look good. The photos are right up there along with the Trump assassination attempt survival photos. They just look great. Show Trump looking like a normal guy. And people were coming by all day and picking up food. And Trump was working the fryer and passing out fries. And he did a little press conference from the drive-thru window, and it was good. And it was obviously a staged event. Just like when Kamala Harris bought out an entire Midwestern diner and then staffed it with her own people and walked through and asked how people were doing. It's something campaigns do. Someone's also tried to kill Trump 3 times. So, you probably should close down the place and vet the people who come in. That didn't stop the media from losing their ever-loving mind, freaking out. The Kamala Harris campaign basically said that Trump's staged photo op at McDonald's is not going over very well on TikTok. They're pointing out how there are some comments about paid actors and things in videos. There are over 90 million views from the Trump page and 6 million likes on one particular video of Trump working at McDonald's. I hate to tell you this, guys, but it's actually going pretty stinking well for Trump off of this photo op. But the media is trying very hard to do this. Well, this is a very fake oh, it's very fake, guys. Don't believe it. Don't look at it. Just for kicks, I will remind you that the Democrats have done a little bit of fakery themselves when it comes to this particular moment. Remember the George Floyd masks and the Kunta Kinte scarves with Pelosi? Oh, or, when Chuck Schumer was grilling and the cheese hadn't melted on the burger because the grill was off, or, when Kamala Harris flew down to the border for 15 minutes to walk along the wall for a campaign video, or when Hillary Clinton stepped into a Midwestern town or Midwestern middle-class house, never had been in one before, or, when Joe Biden set up an entire prop set to get his vaccine taken and invite the media to watch it. Or, when AOC faked being arrested and held her hands behind her back. Just some staged political moments. My personal favorite, The one where AOC went down to the detention facility and cried outside a fence next to a parking lot to show herself crying next to a fence. So, staged political moments. Yes, very, very, very important. Good stuff. We'll be back in a second to talk about how this translates into election night and, if possible, how it may be more like election week. Stick around. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal.
Lynn just hates painting in the fall.
You're listening to the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIPC.
Did you like that? The time after time, because Well, allow me to explain here on the Tony Kinnett Cast, first out of 93 WIBC in Indianapolis, across our syndicated network on radio and TV, and of course the live streams, on X and YouTube, which is where I would recommend watching. The Time After Time was a great intro bumper because we're talking about time, election night week. Election week. You see, November 5th begins election week. Now, there were times in our country's history when we actually knew who the victor of the election was on that night. The returns actually came in via radio and then via TV on election night. And then things got really convoluted. Now, you say, well, how come we've actually gotten to a point where we no longer have election results the night of? Well, I'll tell you why, boys and girls, for 3 great reasons. Number one, because in the olden days, you actually had to cast a ballot ahead of time or in person, and it was a physical ballot that was then counted by your local government that evening, which means, let's say you're in, some precinct like Henry County, Indiana. That's where I personally grew up. That's where I have worked the polls before. So the local county judge, along with the election teams, they would count the ballots in said county, in said area, and they would report to county judges and officials the total numbers of votes for the people, and then call it into the Secretary of State's office. Then that state would tally up the votes, and they would announce, hey, this person has gone to this, or this state's electoral votes has gone to this candidate. Pretty simple stuff. Now things are very, very convoluted. And I don't think that's particularly for the better, but there are a lot of convoluted ways that American voting systems work at present. Number 2, the next reason that we actually don't have a lot of right out the bat answers is because there are a lot of lawsuits that are already beginning to fly around. This is something that I am just particularly just cackling over and over and over at. So, we are already starting to see individuals making the claim that Republicans are likely going to win, and they're going to win because they're going to cheat, so we need to start getting the lawsuits ready. Now, this is according to the New Republic, which is a left-leaning publication, says how Republicans win presidentials, according to the factual record, they cheat. Now, I remember, just off the top of my head, when it was considered grossly awful and disgusting to question the results of an election. And by the way, in case you were wondering whether or not certain groups were really nervous about the election turnout, this is how you know. This is how you know. We're already starting to get things kind of ginned up. Oh, we have large amounts of concern. And that was before we got a little bit of an update from the Fox News decision desk. So, the Fox News decision desk has announced that it is unlikely that we will have let me clarify. The head of the Fox News decision desk, this would be Aaron Mishkin, thinks that there's going to be about a 4-day delay for the presidential election results to come out in front of everyone because you have a lot of places in which there are a lot of ballots to count, in which by law they are not allowed to start counting early votes or mail-in votes until after the polls close. Now, do I agree with that? No, I don't. Personally, I believe that, again, based on the voting system, that very definitive, very simple standard laws that make sense instead of convoluted things are best. When I was a teacher, we used to have a saying, keep it simple, stupid. And the KISS system is great because you run much less of a risk of confusing you, confusing your students. Heaven forbid if your principal's in the room watching you, confusing him who's doing your evaluation. You run less risk of confusion if you keep it simple. But we don't do that here in the United States because if you change an election law at all and you suggest that maybe there should be less interference or that there should be perhaps safeguards from individuals who are not U.S. citizens casting the vote of sovereign franchise, well, then you can be Joe Biden and claim that that's Jim Crow 2.0, as he called Georgia, despite that Georgia has shattered the record for early voting since then. Joe Biden, poor guy, doesn't even know how to tie his own shoes, much less where they are, much less what constitutes Jim Crow laws, although there was a time he was kind of in favor of those. Now, what does it mean to have a 4-day wait on election returns? First of all, there is what I think, and there is what's more likely. Now, I'm going to tell you these in reverse. Normally, I give you the facts, and then I tell you what it is that I think, because I am a columnist. I'm not a reporter, which is supposed to only give you the facts. I am a columnist, which means I usually lay things out and say, all right, Here's the context. Here's why it matters. I'm going to do it reverse this time. I do not believe this will take 4 days. Now, in a couple of weeks, precisely, I may be wrong. We may see that it's a dead heat so close to the end that, God forbid, we have some kind of a hanging Chad situation like out of Florida in the early aughts. We might actually see a ton of lawsuits and some contention for a couple of weeks, and that would be horrible. We could see a couple of days of kind of lagging behind and trying to count all of the votes that come in absentee, and then, of course, they're coming into the state late, and obviously with Georgia and Pennsylvania and Arizona, that's kind of a concern, and we could see this. I personally don't think that we'll see that. I have kind of a hunch. What's this based on? Trend lines. Trend lines and Republican polling way better than they have done in a long time. I think that it's very likely this will take an extra day at most. That's me. My personal take. And by the way, could I be wrong? Absolutely, I could be wrong. This is just a hunch. Now, all of you in the comments going, well, kid, you're wrong. Maybe. I think it'll be maybe a max of, 1 p.m. the following day. Really? That's my hot take for each and every one. That's one of the reasons why our coverage here at the Daily Signal of election night, which begins at 6 p.m., not 7 p.m., the night of November 5th. We're going to have two big, massive honkin' steaks, myself, my co-host, Elise. We're going to be chilling out in the new studio, which we cannot wait to show you guys. And we will be with you until most likely about 1 a.m. If by 1 a.m. the election is not called, I will send my weary team to bed except for my producers. They will stay up and they will suffer for you. In the morning, I will put those weary, tired producer souls on the airplane and send them back from whence they came. And then I, with new producers who are not as used up, will hop back onto the air and I will suffer through with you a little bit longer during the day until we have election results, where my hunch kicks in, and I think that we'll have them probably by around 1 p.m. the next day. Now, if that doesn't happen, we will keep coming on the air each and every day to deliver election results, because I have a sincere interest that if we're going to have this election week thing, then I can at least do my part in making sure that my coverage is honest and transparent with you. And so within this, I promise two things. Number one, I promise that I'm not going to be the guy that you go to be the first one to call a state. Why would I do that? There are all of these news agencies and media outlets, many of whom we will be citing, and will tell you, here are the 8 main media networks. Here's how they have all called this particular state. I will be transparent with you. I will not call those states. That's not why you're going to come watch the show. You're going to come watch the show with us because we're going to give you the analysis that the Daily Signal is known for, is good for. I'm going to show you, perhaps, the Young Turks melting down on camera, or if the election goes the other way, other networks melting down. We're going to have some great guests. We're going to chime in. We are going to have some electoral college map coverage because, obviously, we're going to talk about some down-the-ballot details. We're going to call up some random senators and representatives who may or may not have just won their elections. It's going to be a real hoot. And with that transparency comes the second promise that I'm going to make to you. I absolutely 110% promise that there will be times in the evening that I tell you I don't know. I'm going to tell you I don't know. I am not going to, God willing, make the mistake of telling you guys that I am confident, 100% sure of something, and then have to walk something back later. I have a hunch, another one, so the double hunchback of Notre Dame over here, that those of you tuning into the show via radio, podcast, live stream, TV, whatever, that you appreciate an individual who at times can look at some data and say, guys, I don't know. So we'll put that to the test. November 5th, 6 p.m. is when we are getting started from the new studio. We're looking forward to it. When we get back, we're going to talk about an unnecessary hot take that's just been under my skin just a bit too long. Thanks for sticking around. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, first on 93 WIBC.
Uh-oh.
It's the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIPC.
All right, this one, Allison, hold on. But before, Allison, I'm sure you're out there. I gotta describe station dynamics for a second, because I've got this question on mail time, and I always mean to get to it. I never actually get to it. Who are the producers for the show? So we have a few of them, and they're in different places. Producer Lou is out in Pennsylvania, and he handles a lot of the booking and the guests and the kind of the general feel of the show. Then there's Daniel Elmore. He's out in North Carolina, and he does a lot of kind of marketing field content, as well as really getting forward kind of some of the core stuff on the data side. And then there's producer Allison, the queen of making sure that WIBC gets this up on the air first, and who puts up with me live each and every time. Al, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm super, but I have to tell you, just about a week ago, I was driving to Wisconsin. My alma mater had invited me up to speak. I was going to look around at some Wisconsin swing state stuff, and I popped a tire on I-294, what used to be a really beautiful kind of private loop around Chicago, and I was enjoying the pleasures of sitting on the left shoulder of the road while cars were flying by at 75. That's not the unnecessary hot take, is that stunk. What stunk was that it was getting close to 7 p.m. And so I was trying to find a tire place, because not really safe to drive on a donut all the way to Wisconsin from Chicago. So I was trying to find a tire place. Here cometh the unnecessary hot take. Guys, it's been a few years since COVID. Why are we still closing every business from Walmart to Sam's Club to all of the tire places at 7? Why? I had to drive literally all the way into Little Palestine and dig out my very, very, very rusty Arabic in order to greet these gentlemen, haggle a bit, and get tires made. I don't even know what country some of these tires are on my car from. Allison, for essential services like tires, and Sam's Club is appointment only. Did you know that? We've been a member of Sam's Club for ages. You need an appointment to, get your tires in later. My tires were right there in the store, and they're like, well, we can't install these right now. And I'm like, why? And they're like, well, it's only 40 minutes until we're closed. I'm like, whoa. What?
Only 40 minutes. Good Lord. I totally agree that there needs to be some kind of 24/7, almost like a CVS or Walgreens, but a specific car auto shop that is a chain around America.
If you're Bell Tire, I don't know who you are out there. If you want to start up a Bell Tire alternative in which you're open 24 hours a day and you can do oil changes, car stuff, because when the car crap happens at night and I'm in the middle of nowhere or far away from home, or God forbid the south side of Chicago, and I'm thinking, okay, do I have enough rounds in my HK to be on the south side of Chicago? God forbid. It's ridiculous. COVID is a couple years ago. It's time to start opening things up to 24 hours. But we don't have enough employees. Do what you gotta do, Walmart. Do what you gotta do. Pay your auto workers a little bit more. I demand. You bet I do. This is the unnecessary part of the hot take. Open it back to 20. Do you know how awesome it was to shop at Walmart at 2 a.m, Allison? Do you remember that?
It was kind of nice, especially in the college days.
Sure, there was the really ugly person that was wearing the stuff they shouldn't be wearing, but you see that at Walmart any hour of the day. I mean, come on, you just notice it because there's fewer people there. You get to do your shopping. It's quiet. It's nice. It's peaceful, especially people that are on second and third shift, who I guess we all just forgot about after COVID, that they also need places to go. Now, I do a lot of my bulk at work these days in the evenings. I don't start in the morning like I did when I was doing the column stuff all the day, and the radio show was only kind of a hobby. Now this is my main gig. So when I get done with this, I'd actually like to go get a couple of things done. It's my after work right now. A lot of other people in the same position. Nothing's open. Keep things open longer. What are you? Oh, it's at 7 p.m. Get out of here. You're not a bank. You're a tire shop. Stop it.
So I'm guessing you do not have AAA.
Oh, I do have AAA, but they can only put the donut. They don't have a selection of tires to bring you, in wherever.
Yeah.
But even if you do, I'm just saying that the issue is I have a donut. I'm in the middle of nowhere, and it's man, I got to find. And again, thank goodness that there was a tire place in Little Palestine, Chicago, that was open until 11, and I was able to limp my way over there and then honestly have some really, really great kebabs. But that's really neither here nor there. So the unnecessary hot take for this week, things need to open back up. I don't care what it takes. We need some 24-hour places again because it's getting silly. Remember McDonald's used to be 24? You used to be able to get up in the morning.
Know.
You had like a 4 a.m. trip to the airport.
All the time.
I have 4 a.m. trips to the airport, and like there used to be restaurants open. Now, like you show up to McDonald's at 6:30, and there are people that are like working there, rolling into the drive-through. The people used to be on like their 8th cigarette by that point. Is Waffle House still open at 24 hours?
I do think Waffle House is our only hope at this point.
Waffle House and Hardee's,
America.
man. I tell you what. Thank God Waffle House needs to open up a tire store. I mean, they may be sketchy, but at least they'll be open. Can I get an amen?
Honestly, that would be a great group effort. An auto shop. You wait while you get your tires done. You get some waffles.
Tire House. It's coming. Roadhouse. Roadhouse. There you go. It just works on so many levels. We'll be back tomorrow with more shenanigans. I guarantee it. Thank you very much for tuning in to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated on 93 WIBC. Producers Allison Lemons, Lou Scataglia, and Daniel Elmore. We'll see you real soon.